Everybody's got different goals: investors, first-time buyers, trade up, trade down, second homeowners. So really, I think taking the time to understand that, and I think that also comes through in where I'm trying to grow as a leader, is leading with empathy.
Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast. We have another Penn State grad on the show here, 2 episodes in a row. This top producing real estate agent leads a team here in Jacksonville under EXP. He entered the business in 2018, where he quickly sold $12 million his first year in the business. In 2022, his team served 66 families for over $45 million in sales, which they had one sale for $12 million, which hopefully we're going to hear about that story. His team donated over $20,000 to Angelwood, Jacksonville, the Foster Closet, American Heart Association, and the Human Collective. Let's welcome the team leader of the 904 Home Guide team of EXP Realty, Mike Rolewicz, to the show.
All right. Thanks, Tracy. Appreciate you having me in. And obviously you've continued to lower the bar, allowing me on. I've told all my friends that have been on here, I'm like, guys, it's not as big a deal anymore. They're letting me on.
Well, what I find interesting in just doing the research on you, and, obviously I dive into LinkedIn, I always cross-reference obviously with everyone's social media just to get, build some questions and so forth, is, the career change, that you had, you had a previous career. You're not 25 years old. You were out there doing something else, and how you transitioned in real estate. And obviously, I think some of the show, I would imagine there's some things that you learned, good, bad, and different in the corporate America world that you were in previously. And then that's really made you took the good things and put it into your real estate business.
Yeah. So the corporate America life honestly only lasted for 2 years for me. Mm-hmm. So that was 92 to 94-ish. Worked for a big insurance company. Realized real quick, I'm not cut out for this. Mm-hmm. So there's an entrepreneurial spirit. So actually my first company was started in Jacksonville. It was a staffing company. 1995, what happened in Jacksonville? Jaguars.
Yep.
So my original business partner was a good friend at Penn State, one of the first 10 players the Jaguars ever signed. Greg Huntington, the Mangler, big shout out. He's still here to this day, works with Waste Management. Mm-hmm. And so he and I had this idea, we'll start a staffing company. If you read a book like How to Start a Business for Dummies, we did the exact opposite. Know the industry you're in. Didn't know that. Had no staffing background. Know the market you're in. Did not know that. Moved here. Now, granted, we were able to trade on his 15 minutes of fame in a big way. But the things I did learn from that business that apply to real estate is it's all relationships.
Yeah.
Period. That's it. It's building relationships, listening, understanding context before presenting solutions. So when I had the opportunity, thanks to the gift of a cancer diagnosis in 2016, to evaluate everything, sold that company, real estate was just a natural. I've owned 7 or 8 homes over the course of the time we've been here, and it's always been something I've really enjoyed. And what I missed at the end of my staffing career was the 3-foot conversation. Everything was being pushed to, hey, just get the resumes into the portal. We'll let you know if we're interested. Versus being able to sit down with the hiring manager and say, hey, Tracy, tell me your pain points. Tell me what you need. Tell me the company culture we need to hire to. Mm-hmm. So once all that got pushed down, I realized we're going to try something new.
I see, because I've dealt with in previous to my previous career, even though I've been in mortgages for 17 and a half years prior to that, in telecommunications, I was working with a company. That was one of the things they used was the attempt to hire, almost to kind of get a feel out if this is an employee they wanted to keep, right?
Try before you buy.
Try before you buy.
Yep.
Yes, exactly. And you have to, obviously someone dug into that company's, Alltel. They're still what's remnants are left around the country, but obviously everyone knows
they're part of FIS now, aren't they?
I believe so. There's some of the people are still there, but obviously everyone in Jacksonville remembers Alltel Stadium. Go back to the Jaguars again and so forth.
Yeah.
But that I remember that person coming in regular basis, coming in and making a stop by. Obviously, Alltel already had the account. This was down in Naples at the time, but you had to go in and, you had to find these companies that needed it and then obviously sell the service that, try before you buy, is actually not a bad idea.
No, not at all. I mean, here's the thing. We have an inspection period. That's our try before you buy.
Yes.
Right now.
Yeah.
But no, it's a lot of things were transferable to a point, right? I would say if you were the best candidate, I'm like, hey, hiring manager, listen, Tracy, man, he's like the house in the cul-de-sac in the best school district. You better hire him, get that offer out before someone else does.
Right.
Now I'm selling the house in the cul-de-sac in the great school district.
We were using it we would bring on, actually they used it for me when they hired me as the manager of the store. They get me right in there almost like the next week, only a few days later. We didn't, go through this whole, they figured the background check would all come back. If it didn't come back, then they could just let me roll.
Yep.
So the young Mike, 2022, you're at Penn State. What was your vision of a career? Did you have, when you went into Penn State with some idea what you wanted to do? And
so business for sure. So finance major, again, started with a big insurance company, USF&G at the time, financial analyst. Honestly, I was a glorified data entry clerk. If you really looked at what I was doing, it just, I didn't feel I was making an impact. I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. So while I was at USF&G on the weekends, I was washing executive cars and power washing decks and staining their decks. And all through high school, I worked 2 or 3 jobs. So it's always been in there. And then the staffing came along. I was actually living with a good friend of my brother's. Guy started a staffing company. He was really young. He'd be asleep when I went to my corporate job, on the couch in like shorts and a t-shirt when I'd get home, drove a Lexus, 3 years older than me. I'm like, Dave, what do you do? And he's like, I own a staffing company. I'm like, well, please tell me more. And I actually helped him build a couple little databases and access because I was learning that and just got to see the inner workings. I'm like, wait a minute, the barriers to entry are pretty low here. So when Greg, he was drafted by the Redskins. So we're both hanging out in that Baltimore, DC metro. And then he gets the opportunity to come here, came down for a weekend, I want to say January of 95, went back, gave notice. As soon as I got back, I'm like, wait a minute, this town is crazy about this team. So gave notice, told my parents, hey, I'm moving to Jacksonville and I'm going to start a staffing company. You'll be back. And I remember telling my mother point blank, listen, you'll move to Jacksonville before I'll move back to the Baltimore area. Guess where Fleming Island.
That's right.
So it took a burn the boats mentality, which has always been my approach. I do not, once I make a decision, there is no plan B.
So you grew up, where exactly did you grow up in the DC area?
So Columbia, Maryland, about halfway between Baltimore and DC.
Yeah.
Amazing place to grow up. Loved it. One of the lacrosse hotbeds. So that's how I ended up at Penn State. Was fortunate enough to be just good enough to help drag the team GPA up and get a couple minutes here and there until my senior year. But you want to talk about amazing friendships that were made. And to this day, we've got a program now called Teammates for Life where we're actually mentoring student athletes that are there now. And I can tell you, I'm glad I played when I did. It was not the pressure-packed environment that it is now, and the internet wasn't around. So,
I grew up in the Northeast, and obviously lacrosse, especially in the Connecticut's and stuff, the Ivy League schools. That's kind of lacrosse is the first kind of place that you look to, and it slowly has grown. And obviously, we see it here in the schools here. And I noticed there was a period of time you did some coaching here with lacrosse as well.
Yep,
on your resume.
Yeah, so helped out with the Ponte Vedra Riptide, which was the rec program. I didn't get into travel ball. I just, I liked having my weekends free. Told me to travel like over here to Creeks or to Fleming Island. Yeah, the sport has grown incredibly. And Ponte Vedra, they're an absolute powerhouse in the state. And they've got kids committed this year. I think they've got one going to Denver. They've got one going to Dartmouth. Air Force Academy, Army, they put out some serious talent. And a lot of it is through that feeder program. We get these kids started at 8, 9, 10 years, at 10 years old, and they just continue on through.
Now, I've grown up in sport. I've officiated basketball, baseball, softball. I'm kind of just with football now and have been for the last decade because the only time I have is because I know it's either Friday night or, I was doing college ball on Saturday. That was it. Yeah, the basketball's all day through the week. But lacrosse is a sport I never got on. My high school did not have it or anything at the time, but I do believe it probably has it today. It doesn't get the airtime. I mean, you occasionally might catch a game on ESPN or something where they're showing some of the colleges. Where are these younger kids picking it up? Is it really just through their parents, or how is the sport being introduced? Because it is growing.
I think in Florida, it's the migration. It's all these people from the Northeast that have moved here that are like, hey, kids to play lacrosse. And when you talk to parents whose kid, no offense to baseball or soccer, when the parents get the kids involved in lacrosse, even at that lower level, they're like, wow, this is really fun to watch versus those other sports. And, with the younger reaches, you're going to have that group of kids that are just like, and I was one of them when I played baseball. I'm like, I'm just looking around, like, yeah, what's going on here before? Right. But lacrosse, it keeps you a little more engaged because you never know when that ball could come down to you or you might take a shot at some point. But I think a lot of the growth has just been, it's a very fun sport to play. And it's a very fun sport to watch as well and to play year round, which is nice too in Florida.
All right. So we're advancing forward here. What starts to, you own multiple homes, but what actually gets you in, or what happens in your life that says you want to make that leap in 2018 and get into real estate?
All right. So unlike a lot of agents that I talk to that want to join our team, it wasn't selling Sunset because that wasn't around yet. But honestly, when I went through my cancer battle, which was debilitating, and I spent a lot of time just watching TV because that's all I had the energy to do. Watched a lot of HGTV, $1 Million Listing and all this. And I'm like, geez, I could do this. Seems okay. Let me give this a try. And again, it had always been on the periphery of, hey, this is something that maybe I would investigate or look into. And I remember when I had the conversation with my wife, I rolled over one night in bed. I'm like, Natalie, do you trust me? She's like, of course. Yeah. What do you mean? Do you trust me? I said, do you trust me to be the provider I've been for this family? And it'll be very uncomfortable probably for a while. And she's like, what's going on? And I told her, I said, listen, I don't see myself 5 years from now running agility staffing anymore. Like, I don't see myself with this passion to get back to the Business Journal Fast 50 or to be in the top X% of staffing companies. I had lost the passion for it. And I told her, I said, I know I can get myself on that Business Journal list of the top real estate agent. Like, I need this new challenge. So I'm the risk taker in the family, my wife, and this is the yin and the yang that you need. She likes comfort and predictability. But we structured the sale of the staffing company where there was no earnout, there was no second bite at the apple. It was a straight cash transaction. Right. I told the people buying it, I'm like, listen, non-compete, you can put until I'm in a pine box. I'm not coming back. Even as we're, finishing due diligence, getting to the end, Natalie's like, are you sure you don't want to make that 2 years? I'm like, burn the boats, baby. This is what we do. We are looking back. We're only looking forward. And honestly, the only regret is that I didn't do it sooner.
Yeah, that's actually common. Of many of the real estate agents that I have on the show, I mean, that's actually, they all would say pretty much the same thing.
Yeah. Now I thought I was leaving the craziest business, right? People selling people to other people and emotions can run high. Yeah. That's the one thing I miscalculated. This business is much crazier.
All right. So initially, do you do an investigation of the different brokerages? Did you know someone that said, hey, just come over here? What was your choices there initially? Because one of the things I like to, if there's an agent or someone who's thinking about being an agent, listening to the show, everyone is really drilling down. It's important to choose the right brokerage that's supportive to you, that meshes with you. You see eye to eye. Too many agents some agents have gotten really lucky and they're still with the same brokerage and have been for 15 years. They're, and they really like it and they're doing well, so they don't look to move. Others have started places and been there 6 months, a year, and realize they're not getting a lot of value and they quickly got to move. What was going on at that time as far as your choices of where to take your license and hang it?
So great question. And at the time, so I got into coaching. I know you talk about that quite a bit on the show. So I got into coaching before I even had my license. I'm not going to make mistakes. When I had my staffing company, I was blessed to be in some CEO groups. So I'm always trying to figure out shortcuts and find somebody that's been on the path you want to be versus trailblazing yourself. Excuse me. So I would talk to my coach a lot about what do I need to look for, right? And even at the first Tom
So
Ferry
you hired
event,
a real estate coach right away?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
just again, I need to fast forward things, especially coming in this chapter of my life. So even at the Tom Ferry event, I asked the guy leading the whole event, I said, hey, here's my story, right? I'll have the check equity, can buy leads, can do whatever. He's like, look, you don't need to be on a team. Go solo. Okay, great. Then what is it to look for in a brokerage? So talked to quite a few in town. It really came down for me, it was training early on, just to know what I'm doing once I'm in a transaction. And then just a brokerage that had name recognition, because at the time I had this hallucination that was very important in the consumer's eyes, which now I've learned otherwise. It's more about the agent and their professionalism in their business. So started with the Ponte Vedra office, Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, or Kevin Wagaman. Great training, trained me up well, taught me well, had opportunities to sit open houses for other agents, and spent, I guess, mid 2018 till June of 2020 is when I made the switch to EXP, because that's when the model needed to shift for me. It needed to go somewhere that was more team friendly, and honestly, where more of that dollar stayed with the agent and not the company, because I needed that to grow, to pour back in to the business. And the decision to EXP, some folks I had met in coaching were with EXP. And just when I started talking to these folks, I'm like, okay, here's this group of people again that are where I want to be. Proximity is power. So align myself with a group within EXP where I forget the exact stats, but it's very tilted that the group I'm aligned with, these are the top producing agents among the 85,000 agents within EXP.
Surrounding yourself by other successful people. And then I have a special guest next week. I'm doing a little different show on Wednesday. Her name is Heather Monahan. She's written a couple of books and is a big keynote speaker. And she says, one of the things, I'm re-listening to her book again, just prepping for that show. And one of the things she says is, don't take advice from people who haven't been where you want to go.
110%. Yeah. So the haters, they're great. They're fuel. It's great. Like, honestly, my mother, when I started my staffing company, that's who I was going to prove wrong. Like, I know there's something wrong with me, but, but that's where with this group, and that's why I've even started a local mastermind here, because I just want to contribute. I just want to help everybody. I
did see that. I saw that advertised on Facebook. Tell us a little bit about that.
So it's a offshoot. Again, there's no original ideas, Tracy, in my book. I just rip off and duplicate from others. So, some of the folks, a couple layers up for me, I guess, within our EXP organization, started a mastermind that actually I'll be dialing into today at 1. That started as this local one in San Diego. So myself and Steve Shane, who's another team lead in the area, were like, listen, we should do this. The Jacksonville market needs something like this to bring agents from all different brokerages together to solve problems, right? Let's figure out, hey, how are we communicating the market message now? How are we communicating interest rate changes? How are we going to improve our listing presentation? Just figure out ways to help.
Right.
And the better all the agents are in the market, the easier our job is.
Right.
So that's what we're trying to do is like, look, let's level up everyone and just see how we can help. And it's been very, very well received so far.
Excellent. So how long have you guys actually, it's every Wednesday at 1?
No, we do it a couple times, 1 or 2 times a month. So I think we've done
every couple of weeks roughly.
Yeah, 5 total. We did, I think 3 towards the end of 22. And then we've done 2 so far this year. And our next one is February 16th.
So you put that out there to any agent.
Yep. Any agent.
EXP, any brokerage wants to chime in, listen to the talk. I'm doing a similar, well, it's not necessarily a mastermind, but Tom Reber with Cross Country Mortgage, well known in the area. We're doing on every Wednesday at lunchtime. We're doing 30 minutes, and we bring in another top mortgage loan officer to talk about some of those things that you guys are talking about, like, how do we want to talk about the rates? What are other people seeing in the marketplace and so forth? And the phone that's not sitting in front of me is ringing right now.
Right.
So I'm going to ask my next question so you can go.
Making sure my ringer's off.
You have a really successful 12 months. Tell us, how did that ramp up with you, or did you just as soon as you got going, but tell us about those first 12 months, maybe some of the trials and tribulations and some of your successes that maybe you still do today. But what was that because you were learning or learning forward
Yep.
on there. How did because you were awarded by Berkshire Hathaway for that first 12 months, and 12 million for any agent anytime, is above average. Here, it's above average for the Jacksonville producers cutoff, the top 500. So you're already in the top 500. And, even back then, you probably would have been in the top 300 at those numbers, if not better. So tell us how that got started. Did you have a mentor? But kind of give us some color on that first 12 months.
So first 12 months, here's the great thing. And new agents, listen closely. Took me, I think, 4 or 5 months to close my first deal. So it was just pouring into what my coach was telling me. Get back in touch with your sphere, Mike, and let them know. And this was one of the challenges, and why I felt at the time Berkshire Hathaway Home Services was the right choice, because I had to decouple Mike Rolewicz from staffing and couple that into Mike Rolewicz, real estate professional. So it was just learning the business, learning the product. Every caravan, I'd want to go see homes, and I'd want to figure out, hey, why is this one not selling? Why is this home selling? I had to spend on Zillow, so that helped with some deal flow early on. Was doing some other internet lead gen, following up, but I was disciplining myself. I was having to relearn a schedule. When I sold my staffing company, I had a staff. I had a team that I could lean into and could go do things, and the business ran without me. Uh-oh.
You are the business now.
Yeah.
And it wakes up with your alarm clock.
Yeah. And the problem is I told my wife, and I was in a CEO group called 12 Mavens in town. I remember Jeff Davis, who runs that, saying when he sold his company, he had run a real successful company that did like artwork for attorneys or something. So when they'd go to trial, they'd have these great graphics about soft tissue injuries, whatever. But he sold his company, told his wife, no employees for 5 years. So I'm like, I'm going to do that. So I told Natalie, no employees, 5 years. So, 2019, calendar 19, I do that 12 million. 2020, I'm up to 22. And I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Burnout's real and it's happening. So that's when I realized, okay, got a part-time transaction coordinator, pay per file type of solution. Then tried the first iteration of my team. That was a hot mess, disaster. Didn't have structure, systems, processes in place. Didn't have a good contract, team agreement, marketing services agreement. So stepped back. And then 2021 said, all right, now we're going to relaunch the team, but do it right. And that was a real inflection point to leverage my time, get a full-time operations director.
All right. So you got some really good stuff here. Would you say you went 4 or 5 months before the first sale, if I heard that correctly?
Yep.
I mean, again, for those new agents out there, or an agent who's kind of stuck and you've gone 2, 3, 4 months. I mean, what's going through your mind at this time? What grounds you to stay on the path? And were you starting to go, maybe I need to try that, or maybe I need to try this? Or were you like, no, I'm staying with it. I'm sticking to this plan right here because it's eventually going to bear fruit.
Yeah, that's well said. So I fell for a couple of shiny objects for sure. But I always kept my focus on how do I just build relationships and how do I get in front of people? And that was always the goal. And it still is to this day. So agents starting out today, if you want to, and granted, I'm probably biased as a team lead, if you want to fast forward your career, accelerate, get into deal flow, find a great team that has the mentorship, that has the deal flow, not necessarily don't just go for leads, go for leadership, go for the leverage that team can provide.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I never lost because I looked back 20 years or 23 years when I started my staffing company. It's like we went from zero to anything good for a couple years. I mean,
Right.
I don't know. I just love that my wife of almost 25 years now saw potential in me because when we met, she worked for a client of mine, a cold storage warehouse. And literally, man, I was not doing well.
Mhm.
You know, credit card debt to start that company, long ramp up, couple work comp injuries early on. I mean, it was learning experience after learning experience.
Mhm.
So, and that's where the coaching came in because my coach would ground me. He'd say, listen, you're getting distracted here. We know what works. Let's run the plays that work over and over. And I just came back from a Tom Ferry conference, and Phil Jones, and every realtor should read Exactly What to Say by Phil Jones. Every place he would go during his career, and they'd ask him, you know, what's your secret? The basics, perform to a high standard consistently. Period.
Basics, perform to a high standard,
Consistently.
consistency.
That's it. That's the game. So now, right, if a new agent is coming into the business, if I can look at your calendar, I can look at your schedule, and I can predict your success without fail.
I got to write that down. Basics,
Perform to a high standard
perform to high standard, and
consistently.
consistency.
And then he would say, sprinkle with a little bit of magic.
Consistency is obviously the word that foundation gives the foundation there to it all. And the more you were talking, of course, we mentioned already that you had a coach during this entire time and kept you focused. And of course, you relying on your past success and understood what it took to get there and reach it to a high level that you were there, that you understood this stay the course. And, when I'm out here, I put a lot of stuff on social media. So I go on social media and I'm listening to YouTuber podcasts just to say, hey, what are they doing differently there? And that sort of thing. And that's what they're talking about, the same thing when you're being a YouTuber. Just keep doing it. You every day you perform a little better than the day before. The next customer you're with, you're going to be a little better. Whatever the next house listing appointment you have, whatever, you're getting a little bit better. And then but the bottom line that wraps it all together is consistency. You got to just keep doing it every day.
Yeah. You're going to have pain one of two ways. You're going to have the pain of discipline, which is doing what you know you should do and when you don't want to do it, or the pain of regret.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the pain of regret is much, much worse.
You have to be old like you and I to know that, though.
It's lesson learned over time. But I'll tell you this, Tracy, there's a lot of agents that I mastermind and network with within the Ferry organization, within EXP, much younger than me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm chasing them.
Yes.
And they're where they are because of the discipline, because of the consistency, because I know there's certain agents, if I try and call them between 9 and 11, it's going straight to voicemail.
Yeah.
Because they're in a block of time
Right.
that's revenue producing. And they're like, listen, nothing gets in the way, in the way of this.
Yeah.
So if you can discipline yourself in that way and know the things that you need to be doing, success will follow. So again, show me your schedule. I can show you whether or not you're going to be successful.
So to create a nice YouTube short here,
Mm-hmm.
in your first, what I want what you know now, if you got a few agents on the team and you're coaching them up, if they came brand new, what are three must do things that you're telling these new agents that they must do, especially in, even with the first 6 or 12 months, they must do these three things? What would be those three?
So the three things, number one, conversations are your currency. If you're not creating conversations, and then it's real important to know what to say once you do, but that's number one, is are you creating conversations? Number two, do not be a secret agent. So you're going to have to, in the world we live in, People find us through reviews. They find us through social media. So put out there that you're a working agent. Show that proof of competence. Do some storytelling. And number 3 is study and learn the market. Know your numbers, know the data, know what days on market are. One of the things I'm tracking really closely right now, Tracy, is inventory went way up, flattened. It's starting to go back down. That tells a story.
Mm-hmm.
It tells a story that we're still in an inventory constrained market.
Yep.
Prices don't go down in inventory constrained markets, even when the interest rates went up. So the gas came off for a little bit. Now the gas pedal is being pushed down a little more. So know the market. Conversations are your currency, and do not be a secret agent.
The education piece there, getting the knowledge. How important, I press this on a lot of shows. You just expressed it there without me even asking it, that it's easier to have the conversations when you are out there educating. And a lot of times, obviously, if you're a lot of people who are getting educated or taking in new information, obviously want to share it, oftentimes with whomever will listen, Yeah. And you can tell, but how important is it to go down and fully take advantage of what's going on at the local board as far as classes, not just to get your CE, whether it's a CE or not, is, you got to get your credits. If you're down there take the contract course several times by different people. That's been recommended a lot. But then also, like I said, maybe join the mastermind at 1:00, pick up a nugget. Someone else is doing something, or they read a book that they thought, was really good, that maybe they're recommending or something like that. Or obviously, every day, I think you got a panel, right? You're going to be on tomorrow on to go and catch a nugget there. How important is showing up and participating and making that part of your work day, week, or month?
I think it's critical, because you're never in a vacuum. You're not going to learn all you need to. So the 10th of every month on my calendar is circled, even though I start checking probably on the 8th, because that's when the NEFAR drops their new market stats. So every month now, that's a video that's shot that goes to our sphere, to our past clients, just to keep people up to date. But that market knowledge, one of the things that I'm learning now is, well, I've known this, but I'm really internalizing it now. Information will never change anyone. So you have to know it, but it's knowing how to present it as well. The heart decides, the mind justifies.
Okay.
Problem is, I'm a high analytical, high D type personality. So to me, it's all logic. Come on, this is super logical.
Right.
But you have to understand the heart decides, the mind justifies. So it's figuring out, when you're having those conversations, okay, what is that fear, or what pleasure is somebody seeking, or pain that they're avoiding? And where does the data fit in with that? And, of anything, real estate is very hyper local.
Now, you mentioned there a couple of things you do. You're doing a video. Austin Preck, does his video, Beacon Lakes, and he's obviously goes around and talks about why more agents aren't grabbing onto it. I had a conversation with another real estate company this morning. You were doing a Zoom call, and about doing some sort of video. And now with this chat GPT, this artificial, I can show you how to create videos without you even being in it if you want to, if you are that bashful.
Yeah. I did one for Tamaya. I'm like, hey, we have a listing in Tamaya. If anybody needs a pool home in Tamaya, I got a great one. But I said, with my videographer, I said, listen, let's go shoot some of the amenities, because I want to do one of these neighborhood videos. So when someone Googles moving to Tamaya, Jacksonville, Florida, I pop up and I use ChatGPT. I'm like, talk about amenities and the builder and this.
Creates a nice script.
4 great paragraphs for YouTube where I can just do the voiceover.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you coaching? When you're bringing someone on, are you looking for them to kind of have that same attitude towards, that you have towards the video? Because obviously all the big professionals out there, you got to be doing video, but I'll pull up everyone's Facebook page, and there aren't many actually creating that log, that library of information.
Yeah. So I tell everybody, listen, I'm the oldest and ugliest on our team. If I can do this, you can. And it's a fact. And that's where people are getting their knowledge, and that's where they're starting to make decisions. We sold 2 homes last year. where the call came in. Hey, Mike, I saw your video. I want to talk to you about purchasing a home. Some high dollar stuff too. So that's one of my big rocks for this year is more video content and the stuff like you mentioned, Austin, where it's hyper local, hyper specific, neighborhood focused, not market stuff. Not everybody cares about, or they only do when they're at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But having evergreen content out there, these are like unpaid employees for you. Whether it's on YouTube, which is probably the best, because YouTube, let's face it, it's a search engine. It's not a social network.
Right.
Something that we post a reel in our Instagram, that feed, you got a day or two of life. Somebody can search, right? Best realtor in Jacksonville or best realtor in the beaches, whatever that is. YouTube's going to stay there forever.
Right. It is a library after library. And I'm really lost on the neighborhood thing. Cause if you owned a neighbor, literally you can make a living if you are known as that person. Leah Miske, she also does the same thing. That was when I had her on, she was talking about that farming that neighborhood and getting up. And it took 4, 5, 6 months, but of regular, consistent marketing. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, it could be just the postcards. Those win too. If you're consistently sending out the market report, those people are going, what home sold? Everybody wants to know from that standpoint. I was chatting with my teammate actually this morning. We were talking about YouTube and how to do it. I said, well, you can make this fancy video like this guy here on Instagram, but I'm going to tell you right now, he is leaps and bounds so far ahead of us. He's actually got someone totally professionally doing that. He's going around speaking nationally. There's someone who has a lot of technological background with basic agent doesn't have. Now, if you got the money to pay for that, you're already took it an advanced step. But just creating information. I had a customer, we ended up over a text message and he said, well, I'm not 100% sure about the house, but if I pull my credit, I'm worried about, I have a little 60-second YouTube short on what happens to your credit when it's pulled for a mortgage.
Right.
And I sent it to him. He said, great video. By being the informational resource, like you said, anybody Googles that neighborhood, your video is going to pop up. It could be 3 years old. It's going to pop up.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So Tracy, are you telling me just putting up one video is not going to get me business?
No. You need to fill that thing.
So again, it goes back to, I'm looking at the notes you took, the basics, perform to a high standard consistently. And what I'm beating in to my agents and my team, and they're probably sick of hearing it, but I'm not going to stop. Guys, it's a long game. We're playing a long game here because one of our core values is relationships over transactions.
Mm-hmm.
We're not chasing transactions. Conversations are currency. We're building relationships. A great way to do that is that knowledge broker approach to having content that educates, informs. If it entertains, hey, even better.
Yeah.
But building that over time, and, social is a great way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Is in, if you watch my Instagram stories, you're going to see when I'm out showing properties, you're going to see places I like and enjoy that we partner with for local deals that we do giveaways with. So just being a part of that community and getting valuable content out, business will follow eventually, but don't always think this is that one, or don't overthink. Because my crappy video will outperform the one you overthought and never posted. 10 times out of 10. I don't care.
100% of the time.
So ask my team. I'm one take Mike. When I do something, I do it. It's done. I'm on to the next.
I tell people all the time you just do it. And you might stutter, but what's great about the subtitles, which I'm heard a lot of people actually watch the videos a lot of times with their sound off, depending on where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
And in the subtitles, you can take out the ums and ahs and I knows.
Right.
And make
absolutely. And you can spell your name right, because it's always got my name spelled wrong. All right, caption that. Let's change that.
Right.
And
so tell us about the 904 Home Guide team. How is it structured? I didn't actually count the number, but you've got a half dozen roughly there of, agents, but support staff as well. Tell us a little about that.
So myself and 6 agents that are in production. And then we've got a full-time operations director who is licensed, but she does not want to transact, which is another learning lesson. If you're going to hire that role, if you're building a team, do not go after somebody that wants to use it as a stepping stone to get into production. 2 reasons why. Oftentimes they're not going to be the right personality fit to have the detail orientation, the steadiness in that role, because agents were more social butterflies. And then you're going to end up replacing.
Right.
So she's been an absolute godsend to us. She came from Zillow. She was with a large Keller Williams team before. So I think we have 14 pending deals now. No sweat. She can handle it. And that's another thing that I learned, even in staffing. Sometimes you kiss a few frogs until you get the right one.
Mm-hmm.
So
No,
that's
I'm going to, that's going to be my little, I'm going to go my little, I'm going to put myself on the screen here. In over the past year and a half, I've dug into in the mortgage loan officer world, and your top producing mortgage loan officers are setting themselves up the same way a top producing real estate agent does as well. If you are the front face that brings in the business, you are the one making the relationships. You're the one, creating the videos, making that. Your job is to make the phone ring. You make the phone ring. There are people like this individual you're talking about here who love to sit in a cube and do what they do and support but you got to spend the time to interview the people and find who likes to do that. And that's where some of these personality and disc tests come in. So I'm sure your coach or as the mortgage coach that I had, they could tell you who is a loan officer and who is the loan assistant.
Yep.
And their personalities and and plug them in. Don't hire them when their personality is a loan assistant, thinking they're going to, we'll just get them to get their feet wet and then they become a loan officer. Because I do see the money the loan officers are making or the real estate agents making and go, I want to do that. But then what you do is you set someone up for failure, in my opinion. They make that leap and then go, now some of them have probably made that leap, all the power to them. But unfortunately, a lot of times, and then for them to step back, sometimes you lose them altogether and they go somewhere else.
Right. Yeah. No, it's hiring to personality and their strengths. And the challenge sometimes is, to your point, right? You're the face of the company. You have to know when to do that handoff and to do it right. So guess what we do, Tracy? A video. Congratulations. You're under contract. Meet Adnana. She's now taking over. And here's why. You do not want me handling this part. Yes.
Awesome.
And she's explaining, she's future pacing them. Hey, here's what's going to come next. And I tell them, listen, this is for your benefit. Granted, I can find a mistake in a contract faster. However, everything else you do not want me handling. It will go terribly wrong. Deadlines will be missed. So we let them know why there's that benefit. And also, I believe agents should be looking for 3 things in a team. It's leads, leadership, leverage. She provides our team a tremendous amount of leverage.
Yes.
To be able to focus on the things they do best: relationships, showing homes, getting people where they need to be. So I view my role very heavily now, less the rainmaker, more leadership in, okay, how do I contribute to agents to grow them?
Right.
Because that's where the leverage comes for me, is being able to have agents that
you're their in-house coach.
Yep.
You're the in-house, that's your leadership role. You're the in-house coach and try to obviously duplicate what you were able to do to some level.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the name of the game.
I love that tip, agents that are listening. The video of the handoff and your assistant being in there so they see the face. If they're looking at it on their computer screens or on their phones, your brain does not differentiate whether that person's standing in front of you or it's a video. And the fact that you're doing it there, now they have a face to this person who's going to be calling them. And they're obviously, she's going on and saying, hey, I'm going to be needing this, or this is what's going to happen and roll it. I love that. When I was working with a builder and doing a high volume and saying the same things over and over multiple times a day, I had to put it into a video. This is what you're going to expect. Here's your loan estimate now. Boom. Here's the important thing. Put it all on a video and email it. So the husband and wife saw the same thing. In your case, you sent it to the buyers. Everyone sees the same video. Everyone's on the same page. No one thinks they're being left out.
Right. Yeah. So I've got a series of the 10 steps of the home buying process, a little series. So we're sending those out automated throughout the process. Mm-hmm. And then Adnana, to her credit, I didn't ask her to, she came up with this every week. she shoots a video every Friday or Monday. Hey, Tracy, here's where we are. So last week we went through inspections. We're waiting on the repair request response or whatever that looks like. Some weeks it's
Little
just
bomb video or something like that.
Yeah. In Bomb, she makes a nice thumbnail, personalizes it, letting them know, here's where we are. And some weeks it's, hey, Tracy, nothing happened last week and it shouldn't have. We're through inspections. We're ready for final loan approval. Your lender may be reaching out, but at least so people know, because that's the worst thing.
Right.
Same on the listing side. You need to be updating your clients. Hey, here's the showings we had. Here's the feedback. Here's what's happened in the neighborhood since that may impact your value. So one of the pillars I built, and I'm actually revisiting it now, were expired listings. And one of the things I heard consistently was listed the home, never heard from. That's not good. So communicating, letting them know, hey, here's what the market obviously thinks of our pricing if our showings are down, or just sharing, hey, here's how impressions we have.
Bring in the third-party
YouTube
factual
video.
data, right? Yeah, the houses that are sitting on the market, we're finding, or this is what's nationally they're saying is going on. You can bring it in to support, because obviously they probably went against your pricing plan and wanted to charge more.
We give them 10 days usually. Like I won't take a listing if I think the seller is in a delusional state. Right. But if I'm like, hey, you know what? Now, Grant, I don't think aspirational pricing has a place in the market we're in right now. It did 6-8 months ago. You could try. So now we actually bake in a price adjustment when we look at the data, and we're looking a lot more at active and pending than we are sold right now, because we're looking at the competition to say, okay, hey, if within 10 days we don't have one of these two activity metrics, a certain number of showings or an offer, it's already baked in. So there's one critical conversation we don't have to have. It's already been. It's like, okay, here's where we are. We agreed. I'm going to send over the change authorization, get signed.
I love the bomb video that your assistant's doing. And that could be, I'm thinking that can almost be a step for a lot of agents. Just take the phone. Hey, Mr. and Mr. Smith. Hey, nothing changed this week. We're still waiting for that, inspection report to come back. You can say that without having to worry about it being edited or anything. And you can really start to be used to holding the camera. Do it for 20 or 30, if that long. It doesn't even have to be that long.
Right.
But people will remember the video as if you came to them and stood in front of them and said that, versus an email that, probably as a lot of us, we get so many different emails, we might read it, but it never planted where the video will.
Right. And they can watch it back if they have questions, right? Oh, let me see. I think they mentioned something. Let me see about it.
I always liked it because you could send it to the husband and wife. Both of them saw it. Both of them heard the same thing. You weren't talking to one and then the other one was going, well, did they tell me everything that?
Yeah.
All right. Talk about Chat GPT. So I had Chat GPT create us some questions here.
All right, cool.
Down here. So the statement I gave Chat GPT was create 10 compelling, passionate, and inquisitive questions for a real estate agent who has had great success in 5 years in the business and leads a successful team. Questions should be unique, thoughtful questions that are rarely asked of top real estate professionals.
It's going deep. Let's go.
What is the key element that sets your team apart from others in the industry?
Key element is, I'm going to say empathy, is we really take the time to get context before we go jumping in and showing homes or trying to problem solve. We really want to figure out what are we looking to achieve here, right? Everybody's got different goals. Investors, first-time buyers, trade up, trade down, second homeowners. So really, I think taking the time to understand that, and I think that also comes through in where I'm trying to grow as a leader, is leading with empathy and leading to understand, hey, Tracy, like we talked about you wanting to hit this number this year. We're not on track. Tell me what's going on. Right. Versus get back on the phone, right? Try and figure out, hey, have things changed? Like, is this no longer the number? Or is this no longer the goal? Where do we need to course correct?
I thought you were leading into even the conversations you're having with your potential buyers, with their goals. Were you specifically talking about your team on that question?
The second half of it. Yeah.
a second
It's
half.
always
Okay.
trying to figure out, it's like, get context before presenting solutions.
What would you say, and I'm throwing you on the spot here, so if it doesn't come up, maybe we'll come up later in conversation. So if you want to say, let's push that one to the side, what would be, because I imagine you train them and say, hey, here's some basic questions, just like a loan officer has, hey, you got to ask this and this, and how long they lived there, and, the dates of birth, right? The standard stuff. What would you say is probably one of those unique or more probing questions a lot of agents actually don't ask, but because you're trying to really get into what, the client's brain, so to speak, and how they're thinking of what this next home they visualize is, what's a unique question that you kind of have in that series?
I think a great question we ask everyone now, whether it's an open house or an initial buyer consult. Hey, Tracy, help me understand your current situation. That's it. And just let them talk. Tell me about, they're going to either tell you about the house, the neighborhood, the importance for pets or kids. So tell me more about your current living situation.
The pains of the current living situation. Yeah. That's why they're going to a new one, right?
So just tell me about the current living situation. And that way it's an opportunity to gather some information. Tell me about the home you're living in now. They'll tell you. You listen. Hey, what works? What doesn't? What would you change?
Exactly. That really goes, because there might be something in there like that they put on the low priority list, but really deep down, like they'd love to have that backyard for the dog, but they're like willing to give it up because maybe they want to, be the schools or, where their kids are growing. But do they able to go to find that house and go, oh man, this has got the backyard.
Yeah. Trust me, people care more about their dogs than they do the schools anymore. Especially that millennial generation. Let me tell you, the dogs, they got a big vote.
Hey folks, this episode was produced by Streamline Media, the #1 media company for helping brands generate content that converts. I knew I wanted to start a podcast to reach more people and bring value to the world, but I did not have the time or the knowledge. Streamline Media became my secret weapon to building my show. They handle all my back-end work, production, and strategies to keep my show going strong. If you're in the real estate business and looking to make content that generates more leads and brings in more revenue, check out the Streamline Media link in the show notes and discover how partnering up can supercharge your path to real estate excellence. All right, so here's a good one for those. This is actually a good one for your panel tomorrow too. How have you navigated the real estate market during the economic fluctuations and still maintain success? So we know ChatGPT is only good through 2021, so it doesn't even know what happened in the last basically 24 months, roughly 18 months. So yeah, I mean, from going to where you're getting offers before you stick the sign in the yard to some of these things, if you're not priced right, you're talked a little bit about having the built-in price reduction. How are you coaching? And then to kind of add to that question, how are you keeping your team motivated to understand this is how this business works? There's ups and downs.
Yeah. Because so a lot of my agents are newer. So they had not been in a normal market, right? They didn't come in when I did in 2019 or 2020 pre-pandemic. So adjusting their expectations, no different than adjusting buyer expectations, is listen, we got to go back to performing the basics to a high standard consistently and just go back to that. And what are those things you're best at? And for every agent on my team, it's different. Some were really focused on their sphere because they've been here a long time. I've got one that's owned a dance studio for 20 plus years. I'm not going to set her loose on internet leads. It's not her best source. So it's figuring out what's that pillar for each agent and then helping them dive deep into that. And here's the best path, and understand we're playing the long. And I think that will get you through any market ups, downs, shifts, pivots, whatever words people are using. Crack hasn't happened, but
you've mentioned, you said the long game a couple of times, and it's been something that I've again noticed, as I prepare for the podcast and then I'm listening to every one of the agents' stories and going through and, hearing how they're successful, and where sometimes I'll meet some agents who are not there yet. They've done a few transactions, and it could be just their lifestyle. Maybe hey, they'll do a half dozen transactions a year. They're fine. their spouse may be, doing really well. So that's cool. But my perception is that a lot of them are only thinking of, again, that chasing the transaction and not realizing this is a long, and I think you're a poster child, if I could say. I'm going to put myself on the video again here. A poster child from the standpoint of, you went 4 or 5 months before you got your first deal. You stuck with it. You relied on your past successes to understand what it took to ramp up, that sort of thing. Where I think a lot of them are chasing that transactions, and that's why they only get a few over the course of the year, a little bit longer term now. And they're going, I didn't make enough money last year. I need to go back to taking a W-2. Where if they really packed it in like you did, the 4 or 5 months of sticking with it, and all of a sudden you hit a tipping point.
Yeah.
And it came to you.
I think you have to detach yourself from the outcome, which is easier said than done. But honestly, if you ask clients of mine that I've worked with, they'll tell you if backing out of a deal is the best thing for them, that's what we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Activities and outcomes are very different things. Focus on the activities. This is in my agent intro video. I say, focus on what you can control. Focus on the value that you bring. I'm very much a control the controllables type of person. I know what I can control. I know what I can. And I'm not going to try and overpower somebody for a transaction. It's not going to work.
Right.
One of the things you asked earlier is what makes our team different. After the sale, I challenge anybody to steal one of my clients after a sale because we love on them. We do events. We make sure we're in touch with those people. Anything we can do to help, right? When hurricanes are coming through and I've got people that are second homeowners along the beach, I'm on the phone. Hey, Mike and Deb, do you want me to go move your furniture in? Whatever those things are.
Right.
So just focusing on that servant heart, which again, another core value of our team.
Yep.
Those are the things that will carry you forward. And sometimes you just got to put your head down and just trust the process. It will work out. It just may not be tomorrow, but it may be 6 months from now, and it's at 3x of what you could have got today.
Mm-hmm. Yes. That is a common theme of the top agents is being that, I call it concierge. You're there for them for whatever it needs, or you're thinking of them. It's an opportunity. Oh, the hurricane coming. Oh yeah. You don't live here. You want me to go move your furniture? I mean, that right there, what might have taken you 15, 20 minutes to drive by their house and take care of that. Their perception is they owe you one in a way, in a psychological way. Yeah. They're like, man, he's thinking about me. I need to make sure I'm thinking of him when next time someone's talking about, buying real estate in the area. All right. Next question. What kind of support and training do you provide your team to help them reach their full potential?
So, team meetings every week. We've got an onboarding through Trainual that has a library of great training. We've got a 12-week sales training platform in there called Sales Velocity. We need to get back to it. We were doing Wednesday kind of office hours training. We would do open house scripts, buyer consults, CMA deep dives, whatever those things are. So I try and tailor the training more at the agent level through those check-ins, because again, what works for you may not work for someone else. But here's something I also firmly believe. I can't make anybody productive. All I can do is facilitate an environment, Tracy, where you choose or choose not to be productive. So I try and give every tool for success. So there's an agent that just joined our team and she's crushing it. 2 under contract, former military, the hole we were looking to fill for a long time. And as we're talking about the tools and tech stack that we provide at her old brokerage, she was paying for all this stuff herself. Well, now it's built in. Like, oh, wait a minute. We already have that. We have that. We have that. We have that. So $300 came off of her expense sheet because now she's aligned with us. So having those tools, but again, if you don't use them, it's garbage in, garbage out.
Yep.
So we'll give you the tools, whether it's Bomba, Lolo at our pricing, our Canva and our full-time market director that we've got. So we give all the tools, but it's up to that agent to use them to their full advantage.
Is EXP helping? I imagine they have some in-house.
So EXP has a wonderful tech stack and CRM KV core.
Mm-hmm.
Honest to God, though, we don't use it. So we had Sierra Interactive with GGMS prior to joining EXP. So we took that relationship forward. But I know KV Core, it's $600 a month if you're not with EXP. With EXP, it's part of your $85 a month tech fee.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's great tools in there. When you get a listing, there's a marketing center. So it knows you get a listing. It puts together all this marketing material where it's got all the photographs. You just pop them in, plug and play. So those tools help. We're luxury certified now. We're part of the relocation team within EXP. So that gives us some opportunities. And then one of the big lead sources for our business is agent-to-agent referrals. So when I go to a Tom Ferry conference or EXP Con, my goal is I'm in the friend-making business. I'm trying to meet as many people from feeder markets.
Right.
Now we're focusing on that military
You've
aspect.
got that logo on your shirt that says Florida.
904 Home Guide team, like, let's go. If you got a need, we got you covered. So at 9 this morning, we had a breakfast brain dump meeting, and I'm like, here's the stack of cards. You know what to do. Get them in. I'll shoot a bomb video saying, great to meet you.
Mm-hmm.
We'll keep you updated on the market, and hopefully that leads to business. It's great business for our agents because it's somebody that is already choosing us. We're already at that know, like, and trust level.
I'm going to switch. The next question was, well, actually, I may still ask that one, but I forgot to ask you about it was like $12.2 million sale. What'd you tell us about that?
So gorgeous home on the ocean. Kronk Duke design. Andrew Howard did the interiors on it. This was somebody I coached their son in lacrosse years ago, and we've stayed in touch, and he runs in some CEO group circles that I used to run in when I had my staffing company.
Mm-hmm.
And he, like many, just saw the appreciation and was like, hey, wait, I think this is an opportunity to cash out some equity.
Mm-hmm.
And, go from this one home to 3 or 4 different properties. So the challenge was that fell out of contract 3 times. So and one time it fell out, Tracy, because of Ford F-150.
All right, you got to tell me that. You have to tell me that.
So just like people buy for their pets, people with Ford F-150s,
it didn't fit in the garage.
They're like children to swing it the way that building on the ocean, it's tough,
right?
Because you don't have a whole lot of depth in those lots before you get to some setback requirements. So you came up this driveway, it was like Y-shaped, and you went out, and this guy's like, to turn it and get it in there, it's just not going to happen. But leaving it out in the salt and this, that, and the other, I'm like, wow, this is interesting. And that was the one that I was going to double in too. So I really wanted that one. But again,
right.
Just pull myself away from the outcome. But we got it sold. Great family from the Northeast moved in. I think they're loving. And then my sellers are building a pretty impressive home that's going to be just down the street on the other side of the boulevard. And so that was one where you look at it and it's a great gift. Well, and as we look at our goals this year, we have to adjust that dollar number. So last year was 45 million. This year, our goal is 120 homes and 60.
Mm-hmm.
So you take that one out, even though our unit count will go up, the volume won't go up a whole heck of a lot.
Well, so the next question actually was, what is a particular challenging transaction? Have you found, and sometimes dealing with some, you said you're getting into the luxury market. Who is more, better words, I'm going to say finicky, or something can make some of the transactions more difficult? Are those $1 million, $2 million home buyers? And in that case, that was 12 million. But I mean, are they a little more finicky, or really sometimes dealing with the $300,000 to $400,000 ones can be just as challenging?
Yeah, I tell my team and I tell everybody the next easy transaction will be the first. So they all have challenges.
Yeah.
I think what you find at the higher price points, and we sold a home on Roscoe recently, and you get to that price point, decisions are made faster because these people are where they are because they don't overthink. They make decisions, they make that decision, they go all in. And when it's a yes, it's a yes. And when it's a no, it's a no. So no, a lot of the challenging ones are, especially now, what's become challenging, roof age, water heater age, and some of these iBuyer properties where the seller's not willing to put a new roof on. So we had 2 deals die recently just because of that. It's like, listen, they cannot insure the property.
Were they unwilling to do a escrow holdback or anything? I mean, because I know they don't want it. They had their profit margin in there and that was it. The buyer had to buy the new roof. They didn't care.
Exactly.
Right.
And a lot of these iBuyers, the profit margin is red.
Mm-hmm.
It's the other way. So there's a couple where you're seeing they paid $400 and they're selling it for $325.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, just as an educational piece for those who are out there that are listening, if the seller has the equity but doesn't have the cash, we can do an escrow holdback and do the roof, and as a lender can set that up. Obviously, if you're going to do a renovation loan in any way, whether it's a Fannie Mae product, Freddie Mac product, or an FHA or VA renovation, you can do it, but you have to have that subject to value in there. If the prices are already maxed out and that new roof isn't going to actually change the price point and they have little to no money down, you're kind of stuck in a corner there.
And that's where we were on this. And there were other issues, right? The Challenger electric panel, but the roof was the one that was keeping it
I've
from
seen
being
that Challenger
insurable.
electrical panel come up a lot lately.
Yeah. Insurance has become a tough go right now.
What do you reckon when you're going out right now to a listing appointment and they have a roof that's kind of in that, obviously north of 10 years, maybe pushing 15, we're starting to narrow down who will actually insure it. What kind of conversation are you having with them?
Either build into your price or say that you'll put a new roof on prior to closing once we get it under contract. So we had 2 last year that during contract to close, a new roof went on because it wasn't going to be insurable. And even a cash buyer is still going to insure their property by and large. Yeah. They don't have to. It's not a lender requirement, but somebody that's a savvy investor is going to insure the property.
It's too much money laying out there to not put an insurance policy. Yeah. And I mean, and it makes a huge difference. I mean, the insurance companies, especially, north of 10 years now, and if you especially, you get someone north of 15, there's only a few companies that are going to do it. They're going to charge the new buyer when they get insurance, you're going to charge them a lot to do it. By putting the new roof on it, it could be saving them $150, $200 a month, right, in their insurance policy.
And that can be the difference to a deal getting done.
I'm bouncing down here just for time. Here's a good one. What is your approach? You mentioned this a little bit earlier, but let's dig particularly in here into anyone who might be thinking about, hey, I like what Mike's talking about. I want to go talk to him. What is your approach in developing a successful team culture, and how has it contributed to your success? And I want to kind of lace that question with, some of the successful teams that we talked about, you said like these young people, 9 to 11, you can't even call them because they're doing their dials out, right? But I know I've interviewed some of them. They're required to be in that office they're required to be in the office 9 to 11 and making those phone calls. That's the regimen they set in. And obviously their leadership says, you want my leadership? This is what you're going to do. What's your attitude towards?
So we hire more to the culture than we do to a production stand. So, not to use colorful language, but if you're not an A-home and you want to sell 6 to 8 homes, there may be a place for you on our team. If you want to sell 24 homes, there's absolutely a place for you. So we really do. I like to the individual level and motivation and find out like what's that number for you? Where do you need to be and how do I get you there? And then the development just becomes doing the math backwards. Okay, Tracy, you want to sell 12 homes this year. Okay. What are the pillars? How are we doing? Is it Zillow lead, your sphere, is referrals, agent to agent through the team? Like where is, and our agents are incentivized to self-develop their business. Their splits are higher. So I'm always looking for ways to help them do more of that business where they're making more because I don't have to be as involved typically either. So that leadership aspect is really figuring out which levers are we pulling and then working the math backwards and then asking them permission. What can I hold you accountable to? I can't hold you accountable to my numbers. It's not going to work.
Right.
I can't want it more than you want it. And I think that's a challenge a lot of team leaders, myself included, have, is that we want it more for our agents than sometimes the agent does. And it's a hard lesson to learn. And that's where you just go back to that empathetic discussion of, hey, so tell me what's changed. Like what's going on? And it could be there's familial troubles, there's financial, you just never know what's going on in someone's life. And that always leads into work. It's going to. You can say, oh no, I separate it, I leave it at the door. It doesn't happen.
One of the things that you're talking to some of the top team leaders, I had Christina Welch on like a month ago, and I've known Christina a long time. So we really dug into her business because I've seen it grow and bringing on the right people. And I imagine you interchanging with those people, as we talked about very early in the show, that have done it. You're talking to these other team leaders. And so bringing on the right agent. And sometimes we do have this, when you're in a hiring position, you see this person like, oh my God, you have such great potential. And we kind of almost see ourselves in them or something. And you want to, but really when they actually step in the door, they're not as, they don't have the motivation. They don't have the work ethic, whatever, those things. How do you dig out to kind of sift through those who are going to rip your heart out when they leave? Cause you're just like, oh man, that person has so much potential, but they're not going to make it. So we know that's going to happen. I mean, there's
no one stays forever.
No one stays forever. And then, it works for some and it doesn't work for others. What are some of the things when you're having that initial chat with that agent coming on the team that kind of help you decipher, is this someone, that you can and you want to pour into? Because that's what you're going to end up doing. A lot of energy and some money into that person, with your, career and experiences, hoping. What are some things you kind of do to kind of fish out to see if this person's going to stick more than someone else?
Yeah, great question. And an inexact science to this day. Yeah. A lot of it is just finding out, going in the context. Okay. Why real estate? Why now? Why you? Right? Why at this point in your life is real estate the thing? And what was the thing before, and why is that no longer the thing? And then the why is the most important. What's that purpose? What's that underlying? If it's, I just love architecture and showing homes, probably not going to work. It's, I want to serve people. I want to help people. I'm a great salesperson. I want to transfer it to this. Because at the end of the day, even though I'm a team lead now, at the heart of it, this is a sales business. So understanding and knowing that has to be the driver. And just, again, asking those questions. If you don't hit this, what are the consequences for you? What does that look like? Are you letting yourself down? Are you letting your family down? So that we can go deeper on that and figure out, okay, how much pain are you willing to endure, whether it's short-term or long-term, to get to where you want to be?
What's very interesting, your architecture and like to show homes, probably not going to work. I have a reel of Christina Welch that says, if you're coming here because you've watched HGTV and that's why you want to get in real estate, it's sales.
Yeah.
I mean, you're getting, she said that it was the exact same words. So when you were saying that, I was laughing.
Yeah, and just replace HGTV with Selling Sunset. Like, that's just not it. There's a great meme that was coming around recently. It's top of it, here's Chriselle and somebody having this amazing lunch in Beverly Hills. And then there's somebody crouched over a bunch of papers on a set of stairs eating a sandwich.
Right.
That's reality.
Or cleaning a toilet before showing.
All the time. All the time.
Yeah.
I used to set that $12 million listing before showings. If we had a nor'easter, guess what? I was out there with the invisible glass. I'm literally cleaning windows because that's what people are buying. They're buying view.
Yep. So, all right. Here's my last formal question.
All right.
Again, from ChatGPT, how do you envision the future of real estate industry and what steps are you taking to stay ahead of the curve? Yeah. I mean, obviously we have these predictors. What's going to happen tomorrow? What's going to happen this summer, right? That's what everyone's talking about. Oh, April, May, we're going to see this, the dam's going to break kind of thing. And I had an agent saying, and then NAR posted, oh, rates are going to drop, blah, blah, blah. And I actually responded to the NAR post. It was a Facebook post on their site. I said, hold on a second. First of all, you should not be saying this because you don't know. Lenders have really either gone out of business or taken a huge crunch and lost 40% of the loan officers have not renewed their licenses. So just like they said, 40% of the real estate agents are going to drop out, 40% of the loan officers have dropped out. Margin compression is the word that the capital markets group and all the lending side have talked about. That, which basically means their profit margin, that's been very slim and has been for a long time. For rates to significantly drop, you're going to have the government come in and do what they did for over a decade, which is the quantitative easing and putting money into the marketplace. So to make those predictions, I say you need to hold back and probably not, I think they'll stay the same, but again, trying to predict what's going on in the future. I think from the agent standpoint and you running a team, it's one thing yourself because you're nimble. You can change tomorrow morning. You say, tomorrow morning we're doing this. But as a team, you've got to watch and again, motivate your people so they don't get distracted by what's going on in the marketplace like we've seen in the last 3 or 4 or 5 months.
So what was the question?
The question is,
Sorry, you lost me there.
how do you envision the future of real estate industry? And what steps are you taking to stay ahead of the curve?
So I think it's always going to be a relationship business. At the end of the day, every business gets commoditized. It's a fact. And this is for most people, the highest value asset that they own. So making sure that you're an absolute part of their financial team. So there was a survey done, I think it was 80+% of people don't consider their real estate professional part of their financial team. I like to think, and maybe it's hubris on my part, that for a lot of my clients, I'm part of their financial team because we're giving guidance and advice and information that's driving decisions with their biggest asset, whether that's, hey, what was our primary home's now going to become a rental property and we're going to go to another home. How do we navigate figuring those things out? And one of the big things that's happening on a national level, a lot of agents aren't even aware of this, is there's a lawsuit right now that says, listen, the buyer's agent compensation shouldn't come from the seller anymore. So what are you doing to prepare for that? You better have a value proposition for that buyer that says, listen, here's where I come in. Here's where our value is in the transaction. Oh, by the way, it's going to cost you. It didn't used to. So if people aren't preparing for that, that's going to be
I have heard of this. Who's leading? Who's kind of trying to front that? Because I mean, obviously from a real estate side, as much as people like to, chase first time home buyers, well, you're going to chase them. They're gone. I mean, you're going to take this huge market because they haven't saved up enough money to pay you too.
Right. So it's a number of states. I'm not exactly sure who. I know NAR is involved at some level in it, but that's a conversation that I'm not necessarily having with our team right now. We're focused more on this shorter term, but
those are short-term thinkers. Those people in the lawsuit are short-term thinkers.
Yeah. So, and I think Ricky Caruth put this up this morning and he's like, look, I've never heard a top producer blame the market on good days or bad days. So it all goes back, the basics, perform to a high standard consistently. So that's just strip it all away, play the long, figure out what your best lead pillars are, try and stay away from the shiny objects to the extent you can, knowing that my phone that's been ringing during this whole thing, probably 2 of them are trying to sell me referral leads, probably 3 lenders just like you.
Yeah.
We're always getting,
or they're trying to recruit you.
Exactly. We're always getting marketed to figuring out what are the best lead sources for you. What are you best at? And go all in on those. Have any given day, you shouldn't have a to-do list of 10 things.
Right.
3. Right. What are the 3 most impactful things I can do today? And that can change. It might be over the course of the week. It may knock out 10 things, or maybe those same 3 are that important.
That is such wise knowledge right there. You've got to just keep the boat into the wind, keep steady on course. Like you said, the basics, performance, consistency, keep moving forward. I remember reading a book in college. I can't remember if it was a macro or microeconomics book. One of the analogies it uses, if you've ever been out boating and the wind's blowing, well, if you're going into the wind and over the waves, it's a little smoother than going sideways. Sideways gets a little crazy. We're not used to that action. And if you start steering a little too far to the right or too far to the left, it's going to get a little rough. And just keep steering, keep the boat into the wind, as you're going forward. And to me, that's what you're saying. Keep doing those basics, performance and consistency through the wind. Yeah. Are you going to sell as many homes as when the market was, last June? Maybe not, but you're going to continue going forward that you're going to sell every home you possibly could sell or have an opportunity to sell or buy in the next June, the market, you might not have as many buyers or the inventory is down, but you're going to maximize whatever. So you're going to get your percentage of the marketplace.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you'll gain, this is an opportunity to gain market share because those 40% or more that will lead, that's your opportunity. Actually, last year, we didn't have a closing until February 10th, 2022. Great year.
Yeah.
Helped 67 families. We've had 5 or 6 already.
Got a goose egg in January. So really only 11 months.
This year, we've closed 5 or 6 already.
Right.
And like we're pacing ahead in this down market, right? I think everybody just, they stuck their head in this. A lot of people did. October through December. Well, we kept going. Look back 90 days. Whatever you were doing 90 days ago, you're bearing the fruit today.
Right.
So that's, again, where you just got to tell people, listen, I think a lot of solo agents fall into this trap. Busy, they get into deal flow and transaction, forget, oh crap, I got to keep lead generating.
Right.
I got to stay in conversation with folks versus deal doctoring. And that's why we love having a night to say, listen, handle this so we can go get you more.
Actually, I'm going to throw this. So you had a great first year. You mentioned this earlier, because this is a dilemma a lot of agents have, almost every single one that I've had on the show. In the second year, you almost doubled that there. And then you started to get bogged down. Like you said, you started to get burn out a little bit. And that's when you realized you needed to bring on, I think you used a part-time transaction coordinator. If I'm not mistaken, you heard that say. Looking back today, in someone going through the same, knowing what you know now, when would you have hired or brought on that transaction coordinator? Would you have waited really the second year, or would you have probably somewhere in the middle of the second year, after the $12 million first year, in other words, brought someone on sooner?
Yeah. Usually my regrets in business are doing things too late. And that is an example because, well, 2 things happen. You get to this point where you're so busy deal doctoring that I was falling victim to not staying in conversation and lead generation, and just the time leverage of all of it. I again, my wife, my kids are now 20 and 18. When I started my first company, they weren't born. They hadn't seen what startup mode was like.
Right.
Now, part of me, I look at it as a blessing. They got to see that because they got to see their dad go out of his comfort zone, reinvent himself on the heels, very bad news. That to me is a gift to them. However, it was tough in those moments where I'm working 60, 70 hours a week, every weekend, and not be able to do things that we need to do under the guise of being a provider when I had the resources to go hire someone. So it's figuring out
done a couple more million possibly.
Yeah. So it's figuring out. And really now I look at my time, I'm like things that are not dollar producing, I shouldn't be doing at all. And that's hard for agents sometimes. Like I'll have people, I can't make the mastermind. I'm going to this inspection. I text them back like, you actually go to inspections. Like check yourself. What's the value you have there? Do you have the infrared gun? No, go for the last 20 minutes.
Keep the buyer's data away from the, I do know some of the selling agents going to the inspection. Is that really even, why would they, I know some that do it, the selling agent.
You mean the listing agent or the buyer?
Yeah, the listing agent going when the buyer's having the home inspected.
Yeah. Sometimes your seller wants you there. And if that's the case, I'll try and figure out who on my team can be there. And I just ask the question back, like, Tracy, what's important to you about me being in that inspection? Well, I just want to make sure they don't do anything they shouldn't. Well, they're licensed, they're professionals. I'm probably not going to stop them anyway.
Right.
So it's figuring out what are your, as an agent, team member, even team lead, like what are those highest value activities and how do I leverage, whether it's virtual assistants, which that's topic for another day we're looking into, or just having that in-house person to be able to do what we do best as a, or team, or when I'm at home as a husband and a father, is figuring out how do I leverage myself to compartmentalize all those things.
All right, we're going to finish up with this.
Okay.
My formal question. I forgot you asked it on the last episode, but I'm going to ask it today.
Mhm.
Is it more important who you know or what you know, and why?
It's important people know how much you care. Contrarian answer, but that's a fact.
Mhm.
It's very important to know the right people, but they need to know that how much you care, or if they're going to introduce you to someone, how much you're going to care about that
them.
person.
Right.
Flip side
Theodore
is
Roosevelt. It's not how much you care. It's not how much you know. It's how much, right?
yeah, they don't
That's-
care
yeah.
how much you know until they know how
How
much
much
you
you
care.
care,
And
right.
that's that whole, the heart decides, the mind justifies. So I
Mhm.
don't care how much I know. If I can't get to you at a heart level, doesn't matter. It's not going to matter at all. Because if I'm just spewing numbers at you and trying to prove you wrong with my data, friction, separation, it's not going to work well.
Yeah.
And it's the heart level, then the head level. So I think it's definitely who you know is important. And I'm at a point in our business where our sphere is much more important than it ever was. Because now I've got people looking to transact and refer friends or refer kids. So I've got to lean into those relationships.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if somebody asks me what's going on in the market and I don't know, it can be a problem, right?
No.
You got to know something.
Sometimes you can get numb in this business of everyone's opinion.
That's a fact.
Yeah. 100%. Anything you want to add on here to the end of the show here? Cause I'm going to wrap it up.
Not really. I appreciate the time,
Yeah.
the conversation, your level of research. I
Mhm.
love that you knew what was going on here
Mhm.
when we got here,
Mhm.
and just I'm having a blast in this industry. So again, I wasn't looking for a cancer diagnosis at age 46 to snap me out of a comfortable yet what was becoming kind of mundane existence.
Right.
So when people are going through seasons in their life, always know that there's a higher purpose, right? And our pastor said, listen, when you're in those seasons, we all think God's role is to lift us out of it.
Mm-hmm.
No, sometimes he just takes you and rubs your face right through it
Mm-hmm.
to teach you that lesson. And that's when I decided to sell my company. I said, listen, I am not going to go into this and not do it to the glory of God,
Mm-hmm.
because then I'm playing small. Like there's no way that I was cured of cancer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that great. It was the type I had, the diagnosis was good. The treatment plan sucked. Lost 35 pounds in a month. Anybody tells you it's
Wow.
diet and exercise, I wasn't working out at all.
Mhm.
It's all what you put in. Couldn't put anything in. But to come out of that, so just people, when I see them in those seasons, I just want to help and I just want to encourage and say, listen, there's likely something on the other side that's better. You just don't know it yet. And I didn't. So I didn't sell my company until a year and a half after, going through a course of treatment. But every day I was in there, I'm like, I just don't think this is it anymore. And now I'm like, okay, I'm exactly where God wants me to be.
You're loving what you do, and you can make a good living doing it,
Yeah.
and helping others. And it's obviously something you can do, for a long time until you don't want to do it anymore.
Absolutely. And now it's all about developing others and just transferring that skill.
Right. 100%. Mike, appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
I bet.
All right.
Absolutely.
Please leave a review for those of you still with us. And please check out the YouTube channel. Mike's stuff will be up probably by the end of the week and the weekend. We'll start seeing some good reels. I'll be posting it up, and the full episode obviously will be there for those who couldn't see it live. So thanks for tuning in.